What is happening around the world with consciousness? How is the afterlife dovetailing with physics and science and the ET phenomena and all that good stuff? We're going to find out more today on Accentuate the Positive. Stay tuned with Kathryn and Mick. Stay tuned.
You got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Kathryn Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do.
Hello, and welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive, with Kathryn Swain on the United Public Radio Network and the Paranormal, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 and 105.3 FM syndicated radio across America and Canada. And my guests today are Mick Turner and Kathryn Hand. Yay, in the house. Welcome, guys. So great to have you on the show. Oops, you're muted. Let me unmute you. There we go. Now we can hear you.
Hi, Kathryn. Thank you for having us.
It's so wonderful to get you guys on the show. I've known Kathryn now for, it's got to be at least 10 years. 10 years? Yeah.
I think so. I think Mick found the first one and it was like 9 years ago, I have a feeling.
Yeah, so let me tell people who don't know, there's Penny. Hi, Penny. Hello, Kathryn, Mick and Kathryn. Penny's been away. Oh, no, that's another Penny. Are the founders of the Cosmic Consciousness Conference, but that is a evolution of what happened 9 years ago that we're going to talk about. There's so much to talk about today. Let me tell you a little bit about Mick and Kathryn. So Mick Turner and Kathryn Hand are the organisers of the Cosmic Consciousness Conference. Mick was inspired to run the first Afterlife Conference after his own near-death experience and wanted to understand more about what happened to him. Starting her career in the high-powered world of investment banking, Kathryn was involved in communications, media, corporate events, and global companies in both Sydney and London. And then Kathryn became a past life and life between life hypnotherapist and a healer, and came on board to help out Mick. And together they created some life-changing events. Ever since, they've been running spiritual conferences in Australia now for 10 years, including the Afterlife Explorers Conference, Illuminate, and the Close Encounters Conference. And this is their fifth event at Uluru in the centre of Australia in December, with eight in total. They're running the Afterlife, Cosmic Consciousness Conference at Uluru this December with some amazing speakers from around Australia. And there's Shirley. Hi, Shirley, people coming online. But running these conferences, like a lot happened to get here, to get to why you started gathering people in Australia to come together to explore consciousness and afterlife and ET and the whole stuff, cosmic consciousness. And Mick, it all started with you. So I've known Mick for, I guess around 10 years, and he has never shared his NDE publicly before because he said, it's not about me, it's about the people that I showcase. It's about their stories. It's not about my story. And I said, yeah, but you've got a story, so let's hear it. Yeah, so this will be the first time that you've shared it publicly. Yay!
Yeah.
So what happened to you?
Yeah. What happened to me?
What happened, darling? Tell us.
Oh, it was a long time ago. Basically, just to paint a bit of a picture, I started commercial diving when I was about 20. And 23 it was. I was in the military prior to that, in the British Army. And I spent 3 years in the British Army doing some stuff. And then I went into commercial diving. And that gave me the opportunity to travel around the world to places like Africa and Far East, Middle East and whatnot, and do my work basically. So regarding my NDE, I mean, I was in a place called, I don't know whether your listeners know, Borneo at the time. I was on the Indonesian side of Borneo, which is a pretty rough and ready place when you're commercial diving back in the day anyway, because it was all, rah stuff. And I was tasked to go down to do a very deep dive. I think it was about 300 feet or something like that. I don't know whether any of your listeners are scuba divers, but they can appreciate that. And part of the, after I've done my work, you have to decompress in the water to come back up, and which means you stay at certain depths in the water level, decompress, and then you come back up to the surface and get put in a recompression chamber and spend a bit of time in there before you can go back to work, so to speak. So with my NDE...
We lost you for a second there. We're having some...
Okay. Anyway, with my NDE, basically I was in the water...
We're having some...
We've got a bit of a rain shower here now anyway.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Oh, but we've gone through. I don't know how to stop the slideshow.
That's
to go
all right.
back to the. It'll come back. Yeah, the decompression chamber. Yeah, I know. I have a friend who became paralyzed from coming up too quickly because the nitrogen fried his spine, and and he became paralyzed. But
oh dear.
He has spent. That was when he was 17. So yeah, the decompression is really, there you go. There's you diving.
Yeah. So you can.
So
those. Yes, carry on.
You were 23. You were diving, and then what happened next?
And it's commercial diving as well. So if you can see in the photograph there, it's not like scuba diving. We wear some quite elaborate equipment, like with our helmets and our umbilicals, which feed us our oxygen, and our power supply for our video cameras and whatnot. So it's a different setup to scuba diving. But I was deep and coming back up after what I had to do down there at 300 feet. And I had to sit at a level 40 foot in the water, basically, and decompress for a period of time. And part of that decompression is where you breathe in oxygen next to pure oxygen, basically. I changed from my deep gas mix, which was heliox. I changed from that to pure oxygen just to start flushing my system out of the helium. And then it was during that, I think it was 30 minutes on that stage, breathing pure oxygen, that I started getting the symptoms of what they call an O2 toxicity hit. Being a young gun back then, you type of know what's going on with your body. And with an O2 hit, I mean, I don't know whether anyone knows, pure oxygen at depth is toxic, basically. And that's why all the Navy divers can only, with their rebreather systems, who breathe oxygen, can only be at a depth of 9 meters. I was probably about maybe 15 meters or something like that. So it is toxic. So that's what happened to me, basically. I was breathing this oxygen, pure oxygen, for a period of time, probably 30 minutes. And then right near the end of this, I had about 2 minutes to go before I was going to come back up to the surface and then go into a recompression chamber for a period of time, a couple of hours. And then I got this tingling, a sensation in my lips. It was like a furry feeling on my lips, and I started to twitch a bit. And I knew then what was going to happen, basically. I mean, you can't really escape the inevitable. And then I've got communication with my supervisors and whatnot up on the top. And I said, look, I think I'm going to have an O2 hit now. And which basically means the supervisor will start to dress in a standby diver, will come down and rescue you, and then, make sure you get into the chamber on the surface adequately. But basically, the O2 hit went into a full convulsion, basically, like a full epileptic convulsion underwater. And that wasn't very good because it caused like a clonic in your mouth. You couldn't breathe in, you couldn't breathe out, basically, as part of that convulsion, epileptic convulsion. So you couldn't breathe in or couldn't breathe out. So here's me in a stage, 40 foot underwater. My hat's flushing through all the oxygen to flush it out to the air for the air to come down, and then I black out, and I know I've blacked out basically, and I can't breathe in and I can't breathe out. And this is like a minute or two trying to breathe in and breathe out. So what happened then is I turned with the stage I was on. I turned upside down because I was unconscious, and all the air was coming out the bottom seal of my neck dam, my hat, and so the water started coming into my hat. And so being blacked out, I just slowly felt this water slowly coming up, creeping up like that. And I couldn't really breathe. And then all of a sudden it got to my mouth, and I thought, oh, here we go. So I thought, well, the best thing for me to do is just accelerate the process. And I just started taking back the seawater, and that's what happened. And then all of a sudden, a sense of peace and calm came over me, and as you see in your picture there, I was in this tunnel, the classic tunnel. Well, I don't know whether it's classic, but to me it was a tunnel with a light at the end of it, and this tunnel was a cloud. It's a cloud all around the tunnel. How big the tunnel was, I don't know. Could have. I don't know how big it was. It wasn't that. To me, it wasn't that big, but I saw myself. I was being cradled in a cradle position, and I was like naked as well. I wasn't dressed in anything particular, and the thing is, I had an angel above me. When I look back, I had an angel above me, and I had an angel below me. I'm obviously not panicking at all because it's all pretty surreal at that stage. And then so I'm looking back, and then I can see myself like an elevator going up toward this tunnel of light. And I looked at the angel above me, and it was a beautiful, beautiful angel, beautiful male angel, bare-chested, lovely, lovely, lovely big white wings, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And then he was about 6 feet above me, and then below me there was another angel following me up from below. And the same thing again, beautiful male angel, big wide wings, beautiful. The wings are amazing. And so yeah, and there was no sound. I can't remember at the time. There was no sound or music. It was just peace, and I just started. It was just really surreal and beautiful as well at the same time. So I'm going towards the tunnel of light, and then. I didn't get there. I didn't go through it. Basically, what I remember next after that was me in the recompression chamber with someone saying to me how many fingers I got in front of my face, So it wasn't, it was a very sharp flashback to reality, to the physical sense. So, and so then, so that was it. And from what I learned from that was I was unconscious or dead for like 12 minutes or something like that. They rescued me in that time, and they put me in the recompression chamber. I was unconscious, so they put me in the recompression chamber, and we had a diving medic in there, and I was assessed. But and luckily, really, because with that recompression chamber, you have to get recompressed down to 50 meters because that's 150 feet seawater, because when you get rescued from underwater unconscious, they have to treat you for a arterial gas embolism or something like that. So I got put in the chamber, and I was there for 2 days basically, and I was okay. I was okay. It was a slow bleed, they say, back to the surface, and I was okay about it. And didn't really think much about it after that. Obviously, I got sent to the doctor, and I was a bit unsteady on my feet, and I never really looked back at the diving incident report. I probably got PTS after it. I never really looked back on it. It's still in an envelope, so I really haven't really had the courage to really, take it all in, so to speak. But yeah, that was it, Karen, in a nutshell, basically. So,
Well, it led to so many other things. I mean, before this happened, you probably never thought about afterlife or consciousness or spirituality, or I don't know. Were you religious? Were you an atheist? Like who was Mick before that happened? Just maybe someone that didn't think about it, just got on with life.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't even. Yeah, I'm not a churchgoer. Yeah, it was totally surreal. Yeah.
So this extraordinary thing happened to you, and I guess that once you recovered your health, you were scratching your head thinking, what was that? Yeah. What happened to me? And so you started to search for others that what was your process? Because that was when you were 23. I don't know, was that before the internet? So it wasn't as easy to find groups of people talking about this stuff back then as it is now. So what did you do?
Oh, well, I just I went to the library and researched a lot of books on it and tried to keep it to myself, basically. Like I say, I don't really much talk about it too much. And so I went to the library and started reading about it, and then and just put it in the back closet for a little bit. And then it wasn't until probably, as you say, 10, 15 years ago, I started to revisit that past and started to delve into it a bit more. And that's when I thought to myself, well, what's it all about? And I got inspired really to do the first our Afterlife Explorers Conference by looking at the Americans with their Afterlife Conference. Terry Daniel, I think it was. Is that right?
Mm.
And they did a great job. Yeah.
Is that ions or is that something different?
No, something different.
Yeah.
Something different.
Oh, okay.
The Americans have their own Afterlife Conference.
Explorers.
It's called the original Afterlife Conference, they call it. And that inspired me to say to myself, well, why aren't we doing something like this here in Australia? And,
absolutely.
At that time, and then I've got talking to Victor Zammit, as you know, Victor probably, and Barry Eaton, who emceed our first conference, and just thought, well, I'll put my hand up and give it a go, and I'll try and start this conference and see where it goes. And that's what happened.
I know. You're so brave. It's so fantastic. You're like, putting on events, as you know, is not easy. Gathering people physically, it's a lot easier to gather them online. Even gathering them online, even when you gather people online and you make it free, trying to get people's attention is still hard. But I suppose those who are looking for it will find you. But it's not easy. So to pour your blood, sweat, and tears and money into something like this is a big commitment. It's a really big commitment. Yeah. Yeah. I know. I've done it.
Yeah.
And then Kathryn comes along. How did you find the Afterlife Explorers Conference, Kathryn?
Well, that was a little bit of divine intervention, or a lot of divine intervention, because I was a hypnotherapist and past life regression therapist. I don't know if I'd completed my Life Between Lives training yet, but I was very much on that pathway. And I think one of my teachers actually mentioned it to me, who was a speaker at the conference. And but I was a single mum, it was I Christmas as well, so I didn't really feel that I had the budget to make it. And then so I kind of just let it go, and I thought, well, if it's meant to be, it'll be. And I get a phone call from someone that I didn't know at all, and she said that she'd won a double pass to the Afterlife Conference and didn't have anyone else to take the second ticket, and offered it to me. And I went, oh, there you go.
There you go. Meant to be. Yeah, we're having a few tech issues today. Kathryn and Mick actually live on Norfolk Island, which is an island off the coast of Australia. It's quite a way off the coast of Australia. So they're out there in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Are you guys in the Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean?
South
Pacific.
yeah.
South Pacific Ocean. And I don't know, do you have satellite internet? What internet are you using out there?
We've got Starlink.
Starlink. Yeah, it should be good.
Yeah.
Elon.
Yeah,
should be
yeah.
good.
Well,
We've
Might be
just
my
got a bit of a
internet.
wild storm going on.
Oh, there's a wild storm going on. Okay. But yeah, Norfolk Island is just, it looks exquisite. I thought it was Lord Howe Island, which is another island off the east coast of Australia, which is a lot closer to the mainland. But Norfolk's a lot, it's closer, you're closer to New Zealand, aren't you?
yes.
Yeah, I think we are
just by a
technically.
touch.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another place which would be beautiful to explore. So yeah, that was divine intervention. You won the ticket and went to, was that the first Afterlife Explorers that Mick had put on, or
Yeah.
It was it was in Parramatta, basically, Parramatta RSL. And it was good. It was good, and it was different. It was in January. It was Australia Day weekend, and we managed to, Barry did a great job rallying up a few good speakers, and it was quite, and Peter Smith came up, who you were with, and did your regression stuff with him. It was good. It was interesting. Yeah, put it that way. It led on to bigger and better things, and that's the way. It was a start point.
Well, it did. I think that you started it because you wanted to have this conversation, like you wanted to explore what happened to me and what else is possible. I mean, did that conference answer some of your questions at that time?
Well, that's a good question. It did in some sense. But then, as you know, we went into the ET side of things a couple of years later, and that really answered a lot of my questions. Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. But I wasn't really too much down that rabbit hole then. But when we did our second Afterlife Explorers Conference in Melbourne, we met Mary Rodwell and a few of the other team players there, and we decided to do Close Encounters, and we did Close Encounters for a good couple of years, and it was good. We liked Close Encounters, didn't we? In Coffs Harbour, it was good. It was a good conference.
I know you did it too, because I spoke at the Afterlife Conference in Byron Bay. I was just telling Mick and Kathryn before we went live how much fun I had doing that. I did a house swap, actually. I just put it out on Facebook. Anyone want to swap a house? Somebody saw it, sent it to a friend. I went and stayed in this beautiful property and looked after their dogs, and they came and stayed at my place. And went and spoke at your conference. But you used to do the two back to back. You'd have the Afterlife Conference, and then you'd have the ET Conference. What did you call the ET Conference?
Close Encounters
Conference. Great name.
Yeah.
And then you combine them into Cosmic Consciousness. But obviously, Kathryn, you being a hypnotherapist and taking people into past lives and life between lives, you were exploring through your clients. A lot of information was coming through your clients. What were you learning?
Look, I learned a lot about the death process was one really interesting thing for me, because I've taken, thousands of people through their final moment of death when they leave the body. And that was 99.9 percent of the time. I can't actually think of any time actually, but people, the death moment is beautiful, even if they've had a traumatic physical occurrence that caused their death. The moment of death is really peaceful, and it's actually easier than being born. So being born for most people is quite traumatic, and there's a fair bit of apprehension in those times leading up to their birth, and they're picking up a lot from their mother. That was something that I was surprised how much in the womb we pick up from our mother. And so discovering that people have mapped out and planned a lot of milestone occurrences in their life, so that they pick where they're born, they pick their parents, they have planned out the lessons that they've come to learn. So they've got to have players who will agree to play the perpetrator, or they've agreed to be the victim, and vice versa. So everything that we plan, everything is mapped out to a point. I mean, once we're here, we've got free will. But yeah, I think the biggest thing was the fact that people just love that moment of death, and then they expand out. They become, a much more expanded version of themselves, and their consciousness expands, and they make the journey home, and kind of fit back into their soul family.
Yeah. Wow. Which so you were learning this through your clients, and Mick had learnt it through his experience. Like, you were directly having that experience of peace and love and bliss. I love that you said that the angel appeared to you with wings, like big, wings. Big, I guess that it's an image of comfort, because I don't think we need wings, but it talks to the human mind that that they fly. Superman, they can fly. And Kathryn, you learnt your hypnotherapy. I think that you had read Dr. Michael Newton's Journey of Souls, which profoundly led to you learning how to do that. I loved those books. They're amazing.
I know. Yeah, well, that was one of those life-changing books, and I remember I was in a bookshop in Melbourne, and the book actually fell off the shelf, and I picked it up and read the back of it and thought, oh, I've got to get this. And the night that I read it, I went to start reading as I got into bed, and I read it through till about 5 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't put it down. And I actually had this overwhelming sense of homesickness. I thought, I want to go home. It sounds so amazing, because for anyone who hasn't read Michael Newton's books, he was really the first. He was a pioneer, much like Brian Weiss with doing past life regression. He sort of accidentally stumbled across a client who, when he regressed her back to the source of her problems, she was back in the afterlife. She was in her soul realm, or heaven, or whatever you want to call it. And he couldn't believe it. He was like, this can't be right, because he was fairly mainstream psychologist. And anyway, it led him on his own journey, which he ended up databasing about 6,000 cases of people who he had regressed back to their life in between lives in the soul realm. And so to read these soul's accounts of what the afterlife is like is just like, oh, I want to be there. And so it led me on the journey for me to become a hypnotherapist and to become a life between life therapist. So very, very profound book. I think everyone should read it. And your fear of death and dying is just, there's no need to have it.
Yeah. I think that with what we're doing, with these podcast shows and with conferences and people who teach and people who share their experience, is not to say that experience only exists when you're dead, is to bring that experience to earth. Like, can we find that peace? Can we find that delight? Can we find that expansiveness and awareness while we're still embodied? I think that all the stuff that we're doing is to reveal that here on earth, not to kill ourselves in order to get it, but to find it here. I think that's the probably that's the challenge for every human, is to return to love, right? While we're still faced with all the dilemmas that physical life offers us.
Yeah, and that was exactly, you've hit the nail on the head, because that was exactly what Cosmic Consciousness then involved. That was the key that our conference is to have that Garden of Eden, or as above, so below, heaven on earth. And that's exactly what it was, because we realize that when you talk about the afterlife to some people, they think it means you're dead, and think, well, I don't need to worry about that yet, and whatever will happen will happen. But for me, certainly, exploring the afterlife is about
exploring who we are.
what you said,
Okay.
being able to have
Yeah.
that experience. And and so sort of, if you want to call it the ascension pathway, or moving towards the new earth, or 5D consciousness, that's and the if we had a little motto for our conference, it would be as above, so below, and that theme just
Nice.
keeps coming up.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, so with people with big missions here on Earth, we usually elect to go through big challenges. I was speaking to somebody last night who fell in love at 73, moved to Hawaii to be with this person, and after 6 months, this person just died. And that's what I was saying to her, because she's an amazing light worker too, helping many people, and so was he, an incredible light worker. And she's in contact with him on the other side, and she's in deep grief, but he keeps saying, "What are you crying for? I'm right here. I'm right here. I'm right here." And she's like, "I'm missing you." And he says, "Why are you missing you? I'm right here." And she can hear him, which is really funny. But yeah, the human mind wants to do the missing and the separation. And I think that what we're here to do is to dissolve the illusion of separation, separate from love, separate from the ones that have died, separate from God, separate from source, separate from intelligence. Yeah, that cosmic consciousness is about dissolve, separate from the ETs. Dissolve.
Yeah.
So, but you had a big, and Kathryn came on my show. She's been on my show a few times, actually, first with Mary Rodwell, and then sharing your hypnotherapy, and then sharing your health crisis. That was an amazing story. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, where to start? So I was diagnosed with invasive lobular breast cancer, and at the time my son was about 7. So it was a big deal. It was pretty scary. I didn't know what to do, but I started off, of course, just going down the conventional path that everyone does, I think, or a lot of most people do. And right the day before the double mastectomy, they were going to do a double mastectomy. They were going to do radiation, chemotherapy, and tamoxifen. And I was very surprised that was all they had to offer, because as a hypnotherapist, I had such a clear understanding of the mind-body connection. And so there was a part of me that thought, there's got to be a better way, but I didn't know. And the way that the conventional system works is that you aren't given a lot of time. Like, I'm in the office for about 15 minutes and have to decide that, yes, I'm going to go ahead and have this radical surgery to remove my breasts. And I was told that with the type of cancer they diagnosed me with, that chemotherapy didn't work, but she said, "Well, we'll do it anyway." And it was sort of like, do they actually know what they're doing? And I didn't know a lot about how to sort of physically heal cancer naturally, but I just listened to every cell in my body the day before the surgery was saying, "Don't, I can't." It was just like a massive no, 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 no. So I cancelled it. It was a huge leap of faith, because I really didn't know what I was going to do, but I just knew there had to be a better way. And luckily we had a copy of The Truth About Cancer and the whole DVD set sitting on the shelf, which of course we'd never watched. But I started watching it, and it just gave me hope that there's all these people out there doing a whole lot of different things, and it's working. And so that's what I did. I just went down the rabbit hole and discovered that there are plenty of different options, and there's a lot of them. And so in a way you sort of get a bit overwhelmed knowing what sort of choice to make. But I just had to listen to myself and listen to my body. And, 8 years later, I'm still here to tell the story, even though I was told that I'd probably have 5 years and to prepare my son and to plan my funeral and all that kind of thing. And I was told that it was 5 years with the surgery. When I said that I wasn't going to do it, it was like, well, go home and prepare to die.
Right.
So, yeah.
I know. Well, we're renovating the whole health industry, I think, especially since 2020. There's been a lot of thought about this, which is great because, we're renovating. But, there was a time when you came on my show, you shared this with me, and I stuck in my mind ever since. But there was this moment where you had committed to your holistic healing, and you had asked Mick, no matter what happens, don't call the ambulance, right? And you had your own near-death experience.
That's
There was a moment there where you, Mick, had to trust in your commitment to Kathryn and her wishes, even though was it someone's parents were there? Was it your parents, Kathryn, that were in the house? And
my parents and my sister. And everyone was at the end of the bed thinking that I'm about to die. And
Well, you were.
Mick, I said to Mick, you can't call the ambulance. I'm not going to get in the ambulance. And so, Mick's a trained paramedic. And so every sort of logical part of his brain was saying, this is crazy. I can't just not call an ambulance. And then he had to sort of tackle my dad, who my dad was saying, right, I'm calling an ambulance. And part of this whole experience for me was a lesson on making sure that my needs were met and putting myself first. And it was a big journey of self-love. And this actually felt like an end of life challenge. It felt like that sort of end of life test that I had to pass. And so poor Mick had to fight every instinct in his body to just sit there and listen to me. And he actually brought me back online, brought me back into my body.
There's a bit more to it than that, though.
Yeah.
That's like
the 1 minute version.
Yeah, right. I mean, why were you having an NDE for anyway? What happened?
Well, it's a two-part thing. It's one of those I don't have an answer for what happened exactly. There's a couple of things. Is that first of all, I'd been doing a heavy detox that week. I'd done a lot of detoxing, and so on top of that, it was also Lionsgate, which I didn't realize at the time. But I had literally been battling in the astral some kind of dark cockroach creatures and black slugs, and that was what started me on the feeling that the life force was literally draining out of my body. And Mick was taking his son to school on a Friday morning in peak hour traffic, and my son was sitting at the end of the bed, and I just said, you've got to get Mick back here, because all I was thinking was, I don't want to die and have my son here on his own while I die. Yeah. And so I kind of lapsed in and out of consciousness. I didn't know how much time had gone. And the incredible thing was that my son was about 8 at the time, and he sat on the end of the bed and he said, Mama, do you want me to tell you the steps of ascension? He said this. My 8-year-old son is sitting there and he's going, do you want me to tell you about the stages of ascension? And I thought, oh, he's preparing me to go. He's kind of telling me what I've got to do to go. And I realize now that it wasn't my son. It was, some wise old sage that had come through him, or he was tapping into his soul self or his higher self. But he then told me, he said, Mama, do you want me to tell you a game that we play at school? And all you have to do is, if you want to stay, you reach out and grab my arm and say, stay with me. And then I thought, oh, now he's telling me that I can choose. And it was just like incredible, this wisdom coming through this little tiny body. And so I reached out with every ounce of strength that I had at that point, and I said, stay with me. And then in that minute, he was back. His my son was back, and then I must have gone to sleep again. And then the next thing, I have Mick sitting next to me, holding my hand and saying, "What happened? Did you have a stroke? What's asking me what are all my feelings and symptoms, not feelings, symptoms." And to me, it seemed so irrelevant. I was like, why are you asking about this? Because I was not really in my body, and I could see everything that was going on. I could see all the dynamics between my parents and myself and Mick and our family that had played out over different lifetimes. At that point, I could see I was going up like a tube. To me, it wasn't like a tunnel. It felt like I was going up a tube. And I said to Mick, I can see the bubble at the end, and the veil is thinner than a piece of ice. And so I felt like I was up there. I could see it. I could almost get into the beauty of it. But I knew that I wanted to come back. And so then I had to direct Mick. At that stage, I couldn't see Mick as a human being. He was like a translucent capsule that had gold liquid in it, gold energy. And I could see when he was in his heart, the gold would go up. And when he was back in his head and he was like in fear, the gold would go down. And so I had to direct him to bring my life force back into my body using his gold energy. And I could see us as kind of like a double-ended gel capsule almost, is the best way I can think of it. And so that we could share that energy between us. And so, he was just flying blind, and I had to just tell him, just listen to me, just stop all the outside noise, just stay in your heart, listen to what I'm telling you to do. And he had to do that. So it was a really, really big test for both of us.
Wow, I know. It was incredible. Absolutely. Talk about commitment. Talk about commitment to faith, to trust. Yeah. Huge. I love that you guys have been through this, because your direct experiences of what you're asking people to talk about at the conference, like because you've had these experiences. It's not just an intellectual exercise for you guys, it's an experiential exercise. So I just want to remind people to do a station break that you're listening to Accentuate the Positive Awakening Consciousness with Kathryn Swain on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 FM and 105.3. And we're talking with Kathryn Hand and Mick Turner, who are the organisers of the Cosmic Consciousness Conference coming up in Uluru this December in Australia. Maybe if you're listening in the States and you want to come down under, meet some cosmic consciousness people, people like Mick and Kathryn. Obviously, they vet the people that come to the conferences and speak, because they want people to be authentic and people that are speaking from experience, not just an intellectual exercise. Because there's lots of people just talking about this stuff, but it's that real experiential knowing that makes all the difference in your lives, right? And gathering people together, creates an experience for the people at the conference to sort of more than just listening to someone's story. Yeah.
Oh, it's profound to be at Uluru, which is the most, sacred, healing intense place. I mean, it's literally in the middle of the country. So I feel like that the energy there is preserved in its isolation, and it hasn't been diluted by so much of our natural earth that does get diluted by EMF and all that kind of thing. And so to be in that place, together with a whole bunch of light workers, it's hard to articulate, but it's such a buzz. I mean, we're literally like living off this sort of high vibrational energy that's just, enhanced by the environment that we're in. And take it, you buzz off that energy for days afterwards, and people literally have life-changing profound change happen from those 3 days. So it's well worth coming along. And what I like about the people that come along is that they're not only just interested in their own growth and development, they are interested in it for humanity. So, as light workers are, of course, but they want to come along and actually do something where they feel like they're enhancing and expanding consciousness for everybody. And that happens because, we're at this sacred place. It's on a ley line that goes up to Bali, up Purification Center. And so this year in particular, it's fascinating. And I know that people that listened to your interview with Rachel Vaughan would have heard her talk about this. But the ley lines have some amount of harmony every solstice and every equinox. And this year, that harmony is becoming permanent. We're moving into permanent harmony time with the ley lines. And that's happening on the solstice, December 21, while we're out there. And we've also got Judy Satori, who's bringing through, she's been getting downloads saying, these really highly advanced energies are coming through for the advancement of humanity, for our next monumental shift. And that's also happening right then and there while we'll be at Uluru. And essentially we as the light workers, the way showers, are helping to bring this new advanced energy in so that we can then ground it and have it ripple out to everyone else. And then we found out from Barry Eaton, our one of our MCs in the past, and who we were talking about before. Barry's an astrologer, and he was saying that a few weeks before the conference, we've got Pluto moving out of Capricorn, which is all about control and power and authority, and it's moving into Aquarius for the next 240 years or something, and that will bring the power back to the people. So really exciting times ahead. I'm feeling more positive than I have in the last, 4.5 years about what's coming. So to have all of us together at Uluru will just be something else, and Uluru is the, it's the epicenter. It's like a 0 point energy of pure potential. And so I think when these big things happen cosmologically and energetically, to be at Uluru and to feel it in its intensity is something very powerful, very potent.
You're on mute.
Thanks, Steve. I muted myself. I'm yakking away. Yeah, I was just going to say, I could say a lot about Uluru. I've had a lot of people talking about it this year. Prageet and Julianne from the Stargate Experience are coming out in September, doing some activations and group workshops here, and then they're going to Uluru. They were in with a group of people doing some activations in Egypt with Viviane Chauvet, who is a hybrid, Arcturian hybrid, physical hybrid here on Earth, and they were guided to activate some ley lines and crystal grids and stuff like that. And then they said, Prageet was told probably about 30 years ago that he would go to Australia to do the same thing. And I'm like, but Prageet, everyone's going out to Uluru to activate the crystal grids and the ley lines. What's different about you? And he said, well, when I was in Egypt last year, I was told, okay, next year you're going to Uluru because now is the time. So it sort of dovetails with what Rachel Vaughan was saying about the ley lines. And so he's going out just before your conference with a small group to do some activations. So yeah, there's big things happening. Globally. And also Mateos Di Stefano has talked about the dragon lines that run through the planet and how they run through, as you say, Bali, connecting to Uluru, connecting to Egypt. Yeah, so there's big shifts happening energetically through the ley lines and crystal grids on the planet, which is when I asked my guides about when Prageet was talking about he's going out there to do some activations, I'm like, everyone's talking about activations. What's the difference? And this is what they said to me. They said, we know how hard it is to gather conscious people to get together, to gather together. Like football stadiums, football gets people together, rock music gets people together. But as far as gathering people for conscious conversation or cosmic conversation, it hasn't always been the easiest. He said the activation of the crystalline grids and the ley lines will change that. And Prageet had said that when he was young, he's been doing this for like 30 odd years, he saw football stadiums filled with people coming together to do consciousness events. And I said, I've seen the same thing too. Yeah. Because it started with me at the academy like over 20 years ago, and there was like a dozen of us gathering. Yeah, but the events are getting bigger and bigger, and more people are attracted to come together with soul family and like mind, or to explore and find out and expand their awareness, and to be a part of something greater. Because it's when you come together in, whether it's online or in person's more of a commitment because you commit time and money. You've got to travel somewhere and pay a lot, to stay somewhere. It's more of a commitment, an energetic commitment. You're doing it not so much for yourself, but for the collective. A great teacher once said, where two or more gather in my name. And that name is about expansion. Yeah. So it's exciting. And for people listening to the show, you'll see that I'm helping to promote all these gatherings all over Australia in different places, because I think it's important that we do come together. But yes, I had Rachel on the show. Who else? I think I've got the hypnotherapist. He's coming up. What's his name?
Yeah, Phoenix.
Phoenix. Do you want to talk us through a couple of the people that you've got coming?
Yeah, well, Phoenix is an interesting one. I am really looking forward to him. We're going to start off the night before the conference with a comedic hypnotism show where he'll turn people into, I don't know, invisible. I don't know what he'll do, but it will be good fun. It'll be a nice light way to meet people and connect. And then Phoenix is also doing a keynote presentation about, changing your mindset and being able to manifest the things that you want. And so he's also done a lot of work with the Gateway program. And so he'll talk a little bit about that, and that'll be really interesting. All the technology that the CIA used and taught their operatives to use, the remote viewing and color harmonization even, and hypnosis and all that kind of thing. So that'll be really fascinating. As I said, we've got Judy Satori coming over from New Zealand. She's a phenomenal energy healer. So we're very lucky, actually. Judy doesn't normally speak at conferences. She just sort of tends to do her own workshops. But we'd been sort of trying to get her involved in it, and it wasn't until she was there. I think it was in earlier on in the year anyway, and she messaged me from Uluru and said, yep, Kathryn, I've just been told I've got to be at the Cosmic Consciousness Conference. So she committed. We've got the Strongs, who are well known for their out of Australia theory and their they're amazing archaeohistorians and often tell alternative versions of history. There's our German Shepherd. We've got Vaughan Nickel talking about his speciality is, pre-flood history, and he talks a lot about Atlantis and Lemuria and the giants and the angelic beings, and he's going to talk about flat earth theory and how the ancients always viewed our model of the earth as a flat plane, not a round spinning ball. So that'll be really good. I can't actually go through every speaker because we've got like 21 of them, but they're all fascinating, like different, diverse. One of the ones I just saw there was Isha Patel. She's talking, you interviewed Isha, but she's actually talking about activating our wealth consciousness, which is really important for light workers, because so often we spend a lot of time just living like, we trust that the money will come in, but we don't always have an abundance or an overflow of money. And I think a lot of us are thinking like, I'm tired of living this way. I want to just be able to do what I can do without worrying about money. So I think that it's good to know that as light workers, we're allowed to be wealthy. It's this sort of hangover of you can't make money and be spiritual, and we've got to be, if we're going to keep doing and giving the world our gift, able to have some financial assistance. Otherwise, we end up going back to our 3D soulless jobs. So I think that'll be very interesting.
Yeah, well, the thing about I think that the activation of the ley lines and the crystal grids is all about dissolving third dimensional paradigms of control. And one of them is, that if you do spiritual work, you have got to do it for free, or you can't be paid for it. It is a sort of old religious hangover, really. And I don't think it's about activating your wealth sort of thing. It's about dissolving ideas and not buying into belief systems and ideas. But a lot of people use that 3D model to make money inside of cosmic consciousness, work, and that doesn't work either. It really doesn't. There's a whole sort of marketing plan of lack and limitation, which is the marketing plan that most people use to get us to buy stuff. Get in quick, limited time only discounted for you now, blah, 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 blah. It's more buying into knowing and faith and knowing, yep, that's where I need to be. Like even your story about you couldn't afford the ticket to the Afterlife Conference, and then life showed up with a free ticket. Like that's how it works. That's just how it works. It's so cool, and really strengthening that trust and faith. That I have a girlfriend who did a workshop that was $11,000 for the weekend. It was the most expensive workshop. I won't mention what it was I had ever seen. And then he discounted it to $8,000. And she asked her husband, she was working, but for the money. And he said, no, I'm not going to pay for that. That sounds like woo-woo crap. And she found an old bank account that she had before she got married that she had forgotten about. She'd been married for years, had 3 kids. And she found this old bank account which had exactly the amount of money she needed to do the workshop.
Wow.
I think the workshop was excessive because she didn't need to go and book, hotels and stay anywhere. It was just in her hometown. But she loved it. She loved it, and she thought it was worth every cent. So when you make a decision, the money comes. It just comes. Make a decision and line up with it, and everything just falls into place. It just all falls into place.
Absolutely.
That's the 5th dimensional consciousness, rather than trying to work harder to make more money to get what you want. It's make a decision and line up with it, and it all falls into place. Pennies from heaven, a girlfriend of mine used to say. So
I'm a big believer in that, and we hear that story over and over again. And our 3-day course is a fraction, a tenth of the price of the $11,000 course. But we often hear people say that they just, once they made that decision to come and they just, you know, booked their ticket, then things work out. The money for the airfare turns up, or the money for the accommodation turns up. And we hear a lot of people say, we don't even know why we were called to come. Like, it wasn't a logical decision. They just followed their heart. They followed their calling. And I love that. You know, I love those people that will just follow their heart and go with their inner guidance system, because it never puts them in a wrong position. They'll always be doing the right thing. So I really, really love that. I mean, we had one lady for the December 2020, the Age of Aquarius one. She was in London, and she rang us about 3 days before the conference and said, and it was actually a sellout. And so she rang from London and said, I've got to be there. I've just discovered about it. And can I get in? And we said, look, if you can make it from London in 3 days, we'll get you in, not a problem. And she did. She turned up and made it, and, you know, had literally acted on, you know, with such a spontaneous gut reaction that she had to be there. So,
yeah.
There's no excuse for people to not be there. You know, if you can, if it's meant to be, the universe will find a way for you to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I've got so many stories like that. Yeah, when you make a decision, because I think a lot of our decisions are informed by our limited mind that says, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, it's too far away. Like we make decisions based on our head. And you were talking about this, Mick, too. And Kathryn, you were saying when Mick was in his heart, he was gold. And when he was in his head and worried and in fear, the gold depleted. So when you make a decision from your heart, this is something I know I'm supposed to be a part of. This is something I want. Yeah, you fill up with gold. You start sparkling. You like shine in the world.
Yeah.
So have you ever shared, Mick or Kathryn, your stories at your own conference? I don't think you have you? Have you ever been a speaker?
And, you know, we have had people say, oh, we want to hear about you too. And what got you here? Because if it wasn't for you two, we wouldn't all be here. But I don't know. We're still a bit shy. I mean, maybe one day. But I think what happens is that we have so many incredible speakers that we always think, no, you know, our time there is so precious. We want to get these speakers out there, and so I don't know. Maybe one time we'll do it.
I think you should always make a space to share your experiences. Well, hopefully people will listen to your experience on this show and learn a little bit about you. Because I know that if I go to anything, that human mind of mine wants to know who's behind this. Like, who are the organisers of this? Because I've just got such a curious mind. Not everybody has a curious mind like me, but I want to know, like, why are you doing this? What's the reason that you're doing this? So, and you guys have got good reason. Here's a question. So you had your expansion experience, Kathryn, through your hypnotherapy clients, and Mick through your own experience, your NDE, and Kathryn, well, through your own healing crisis too. But what have you learnt over the years from people that have come and spoken? I know that I've had a few private conversations with you about big speakers that you've had that you've been unimpressed with, but have there been speakers that you've been impressed with that have like rocked your world and sort of you've gone, wow, I didn't know that before?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that probably my top 3 speakers for me personally, Martin Kenny was one. He came to our Saturn Pluto conjunct conference, and that was when we had the societal reset. So it was the Pluto Saturn conjunct, the 12th of January, and that very day after we'd had our ceremony, Barry Eaton, the MC, got up on stage and said, well, Harry and Meghan have quit the royal family. And so we knew that this big reset was going to happen. We did not know how massive it would be. And then, of course, things rolled out over the next couple of months and into 2020. But Martin Kenny just changed my world. He spoke, I think he did 3 or 4 presentations actually, and with everyone you could hear a pin drop. Everyone just was in awe of the way that he spoke and the way he expresses things, and he introduced a lot of people to different concepts about the nature of the world that we live in. And then another one was Carolyn Corey, who just she did a process with everybody, and it was like it really shifted something in me. I mean, so many. We had Dr. Brian Ardis, and he'll be back this year. We're Zooming him in. And again, like Dr. Ardis, for people that don't know Dr. Ardis, he's relentless in the work and the research that he is doing about everything that's been going on and the things that they've been trying to give to people by mandates. And but he also talks a lot about the body's ability to heal, and I love his work. I mean, he is so inspirational. So that was my 3. But they're all amazing, you know. And different people get different things, and people will take away that one nugget that changes their life. I mean, Carrie Ann, amazing.
Did you say that you're Zooming Dr. Brian Ardis in? Because I know he's an American. You're Zooming him in. Okay. So he's not coming physically. Oh, that's interesting.
He's not coming this year, no.
Mainly.
Yeah, I was just going to say mainly because it's they've got a big Christmas family thing planned, but he and his wife, who we've had beautiful conversations with, they would really love to come, but it will probably be next year that they'll come in person.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed,
David Bumblebee, he's another person that you told me to get on the show, but we couldn't get a hold of him.
Yeah.
He's a little reclusive. He's a bit hidden.
Yeah.
Tell us about him.
Shy.
David Bumblebee is very shy. He's only just recently had a spiritual awakening, and he's a biochemist. So he has been very, very scientific up until he had this awakening. And so now he's really excited about connecting science and spirituality, because a lot of the things that we take for granted and we just sort of have a knowing about, he can find a scientific way to explain it. And he particularly loves sort of looking at light workers and how we just knowingly, instinctively use certain things in nature or our environment to help our intuition and our psychic ability. So he's talking about our cosmic antenna, the little crystals in our pineal gland, and how we can use that connection to enhance our psychic ability and our superpowers. And he calls himself a cross-pollinator between science and spirituality, and he's fascinating. He's really fascinating to listen to.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, with Dr. Brian Ardis, he's quite controversial. And, you know, what's happened in since 2022 is there's been the beginning of the mass awakening of humanity. But it's interesting because I've always spoken about awakening as in having a spiritual awakening like Mick did. It's like I'm bipping along through life and then I'm in bliss. And I'm talking to big angels, like, what the is going on? And so to me, that's what awakening always meant. But since 2020, I've heard a lot of people talk about awakening in that they've now become aware of the intense problems of our world, or the intense control of the world. And they call that an awakening, because what I was ignorant of before, I'm now aware of now. But but a lot of people are sort of coming to this information and they're awakening angry. They're not in bliss. They're feeling duped and controlled and angry. And to me, that's not an awakening. A lot of people are talking about, because as you say, as above, so below. How can we come to this knowledge and this awareness and still maintain that connection to bliss and that place that you experienced, both of you, during your NDEs?
Yeah, well, I think it comes. I think if they have the rude awakening, it's brutal. You know, it's pretty brutal for people to awaken to the nature of our world and who controls it. But the spiritual awakening follows. I'm seeing that, and I even, one thing that really stuck out at me the first time I went to see David Icke, and he did his 10-hour show when he was doing that before he got banned from Australia. And what I noticed in that audience, because he talked a lot about certain theories, and it was a highly male audience because it just seemed to appeal to the men. And then towards the end of that 10-hour show, he started talking about love is
Love is all there is. Yeah. We've got frozen again. Love it. Thank you, internet. So I'll just keep
these concepts being introduced to the. Yeah, I was just talking about the fact that, this audience is largely a male audience, and talking about the theories that that David talks about, but at the end of it, he introduced them all to the concept of consciousness, and that everything is consciousness, and that we everything is about love and about the truth vibration, and I love that, and I think that little microcosm of that day is what happens to people, that however they awaken, whether they have their spiritual awakening or they have their rude awakening, they end up, they end up coming. And I'm seeing that in a lot of people that were very vocal through 2020 and 2021. They are now, that's sort of like dropping out of their repertoire, and they're really focusing on developing their spiritual gifts that they've now got in touch with. And so it's one way or the other, but I think they all seem to get to the same point in knowing that there's more, there's another option, there's a different timeline, and that we're co-creators of that. And so there's a balance between being a light warrior and having that righteous rage, and being able to also create the future or create the timeline that we're here to create.
Be an influence, because on the last few shows, Abraham Hicks or Esther Hicks, the Abraham Collective, have said, one person connected to the stream of pure positive energy, of love, of unconditional love, is more influential than a million who are not. So when you evoke that feeling of bliss and love and unity and connection within yourself, you have a power of influence over the whole world. But in your anger and your outrage, you do not. Like, you empty the gold measurement, like you said, that gold. I love that image of the gold going down and the gold going up. Mick, what do you want to say about that?
About what was the question? The gold?
About having a spiritual awakening.
About having a rude awakening and maintaining a spiritual awareness.
Oh, yeah, I suppose it was a bit of a rude awakening for me, but look where we're at now at the end of the day. We're doing this amazing conferencing series, and I'm just, it's been an interesting journey, put it this way, for me anyway, from the NDE.
Kathryn's always been a big fan of David Icke. I've not been a fan of David Icke, but you've always talked about how much you love him. And because the thing is that it's not that I disagree with anything he says, But the majority, 99% of what he says is the rude awakening, and then 10% or 1% at the end of his talk is the spiritual awakening. And I think we need to change the balance, 50-50 or 20-80, like 20% of rude awakening, 80% of spiritual awakening. I've been to many talks. I went to an American guy, I can't remember his name, who was out here talking at a UFO conference, and his talk was all about what to be scared of too, what to be fearful of. And at the end of it, I challenged him to talk about something positive. And he, again, like a David Icke, said, oh yeah, it's all about love and light and connection. And I said, could you introduce that into your talk? And I really challenged him. But yeah, I think that with this information that's flying around the world, we need to understand what's good to know, how it serves us and how it really serves us. It's good to be aware. But is that awareness making you angry and upset and feel disempowered, or is that awareness empowering you? I think that that's really important with all this information that's around, don't you?
Yeah. And I think that, for me now, I mean, I've experienced a lot of anger and over the last 4 years. And I think it's triggered a lot of my past life experiences as well, where we've had other lifetimes where we've been oppressed and we've been killed, burnt at the stake for having our beliefs and being, the sort of outsiders of society going against the norm. And so it's triggered it again in this lifetime. So I've had a lot of anger. I've had to do a lot of releasing but I also do believe that to sit back and sort of just do nothing on that front. I mean, in the situation that we've lived through, you could either be you could either be a part of the solution or you could be a part of the problem. And so I felt that we had to stick to our rights, stick up for our rights and not comply with a lot of the things that were ridiculous. So I was a very, very adamant and strong activist against all of that. And I was disappointed that so few people, people just had apathy to a lot of what went on and just thought, I'll just try and keep under the radar. So that did anger me, even though there's another part of me that knows that, pardon me, that's their journey. But I also believe that in continuing to expose what their plans are and sort of out them in what their agendas are, I think that's part of the process too, that we have to keep putting it out there so that they know that we're onto them and we know that we are awake to the shenanigans. And I think that does delay it sometimes. And but I feel now that we're at the pointy end of things, and I actually now see some of the ploys as a desperate attempt, their last gasp, because they know that things are going to turn around, and they're desperate. So I can now get to the point where I'm almost can laugh at them for what they're still trying to do. And I laugh at a lot of it because I see how ridiculous it is. And I think that's a better place to be in, where I can just reframe it as, yeah.
It is ridiculous, and it's very entertaining. I mean, if you have to speak to my group, I found the whole presidential election thing this year so entertaining. Like, what is going to happen? Best sitcom on time. I don't take any of it seriously because I don't think that our power lies in who's elected.
No, not at all.
What government? I think the power is within us. Watching this power. The internet's been interesting today.
Yeah.
We've got storms here anyway. So
for you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, hopefully the audio's still awake. Well, we've got a few minutes to go. There is a link underneath the Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble things here that Kathryn and Mick have given me, an affiliate link. So if you click on it and put in Karen, you get $50 off, and I get a bit of a fee of, like, I don't know, a few cents or something, which is nice. I've used affiliate links for 20 years and I've been rarely paid, but I actually don't do it to be paid. I do it to spread awareness. But if you are considering going and you want to support the show and get a $50 discount, yeah, as I said, Kathryn and Mick have provided me with an affiliate link. That would be cool. I'd love to hear more about it. So anything else you want to say before we go?
Well, I would just love to say we would be really excited if we had some of your listeners come and join us, and might be their first trip to Australia, but we love having an international audience. And before certain events that have happened recently, we used to have a really big international audience, and that has not been as much of a case now. But so yes, come over, come visit Australia, have a down under outback Aussie, Christmas day on and have Christmas lunch with us. We call it the Soul Family Lunch. And a lot of people said it was their best Christmas ever last time. We had about 50 people stay back and have a beautiful buffet with a few prawns on the barbie, and better than spending time with their biological family, a lot of people say. We're all the black sheep in the family. Just come along and experience Australia. It's a lot of people think it's too hot, but it's not. It's actually cooler than it is in the coastal cities. The temperature is always lower than in Sydney at that time. And of course, there's no humidity. So it's a beautiful dry heat. And we're in aircon comfort all day anyway through the conference. And we get to go out to the rock. We have exclusive tours where we get on the bus with each other and everyone's talking about the photos that they've captured and just having very interesting conversations. So we have a great time. So we'd love to see some of your listeners from overseas come over and have a great time in Australia.
Yeah, and congratulations for doing this, because as I said before, it's not easy putting on a physical conference and getting people together. There's a lot of commitment and a lot of financial commitment on both your parts involved in this. And I guess you've got to, be faith, hold the faith, hold the trust that all will work out and everybody will be nurtured, including the speakers, because I'm involved in the Afterlife convention, as you know, in June next year. So I've gone on the team, and that's Paul King has put that on. He's just so like you guys. He's so shy, didn't want to come on camera, didn't want to share his story because it's not about him, it's about everybody else. And I'm like, I've heard that before. But I really think that that's in integrity if you're about promoting and helping other people shine, and it's not just about what I've got to say. Yeah, I think that's really in integrity. So congratulations for what you're doing. And I know it hasn't been easy over the last few years because every event was shut down, like nobody could gather. So getting the strength to get up and running again after everything was shut down is, Do you think people are more eager to get out and gather physically after we were all locked in for a while?
Yeah, I do. I think we ran a couple of conferences on Norfolk Island because it was one place where you could travel to that you didn't need to have a certain requirement. And but I think people suffered, and still are, with a bit of PTSD because they made so many plans time and time again to travel, and then it got shut down and So I think for people had like a bit of PTSD and were really reluctant to book anything and sort of look forward to anything or plan a holiday and that kind of thing. But I think that has lifted now. I think people are really keen to go traveling again and to reconnect with people that are on the same page length, to be in a room with like-minded people. Might have different perspectives on things, but at least you're in a room full of people that are on the same wavelength, and they might not agree with you on one thing. We might have a half a room of flat earthers and the other half are globe believers, but they are open-minded enough to listen to each other and not disrespect them just because they have a different view. And that's really rare these days. So it's a fantastic experience just to be in a room with that kind of person.
Yeah, I had Adam Apollo on the show last week. He said that the flat Earth philosophy is really big. Yeah, we had a chat about it after we turned off the live, actually, about when people talk about planes of existence, like different planes of existence. They're not talking about space so much as in because it's hard to talk about energy coming from a physical perspective, planes of existence. Anyway, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
Flat earthers. Yeah. Can we come together with different ideas and still love each other? Exactly. Well, thanks so much, guys, for being on the show. What have we got? About 6 minutes left. Hasn't been a big audience watching the live today. Not too many comments, but a couple of the ladies that join have been online. And we didn't get to share your past life experience. You said before we went live that Kathryn had regressed you Mick, to a couple of past life experiences, and you saw yourself together in different past lives.
Yeah, thankfully, Kathryn did a past life regression on me, and I had about three chapters in that, didn't I? Where I was in the middle of the Pacific on an island, islander, and my canoe capsized, dugout canoe capsized, and I drowned in that one, unfortunately. And then the next one, I was a plantation owner in America, and I think Kathryn was a slave girl then, and she came and chopped me up in the middle of the hallway, I believe so, with a big sword.
You killed him, did you?
I don't know that I did, but he was the victim of an uprising.
Oh, okay.
And then the last one, probably the most important one, was a First World War soldier, Billy Patterson, who fought in the Somme, and that's quite a vivid regression, because I remember going over the trenches and back in the day then, and getting shot in the throat, similar to my O2 hit, where I couldn't breathe in and breathe out. So it was a very similar sensation. Well, me drowning as a Pacific Islander and me getting shot in the throat. Just go figure that one out, So yeah, that was that, wasn't it?
But the great thing about that, because he was an Australian soldier, even though he's a Kiwi in this lifetime, I could track his records, and I couldn't at first. He said his name was William Patterson, but I couldn't find any records. So with the help of the Australian War Memorial, we eventually found his past life person, and it was William Patterson with one T. Spelling was different. So we managed to get a photo of him. I'm having a coughing fit. You'll have to take over.
What, me?
Yeah.
We talked about translucent beings and whatnot. Part of that past life regression Kathryn did on me was I remember I lived in London for a little bit. I remember going into a park early in the morning, Hyde Park, wherever, a lovely, beautiful park, and then sitting on a bench was this translucent being, very similar to what Kathryn saw in her NDE, and I just sat next.
Oh, we've frozen again. Thank you, internet. Translucent being. We're talking about translucent being. We've only got what have we got left? We've got 2 minutes left of the show. Sorry, you froze again. You were talking about We've only got 2 minutes left of the show, or 1 minute left of the show. Yeah. But yeah, we'll continue this conversation at the Cosmic Consciousness Conversation. Yeah, we will. Hopefully you guys can come to Sydney and be a part of the Afterlife convention too, and maybe have a stall there telling people about what you're doing, because it's not about competition, it's about conscious people all coming together to support each other, and that's going to be in the middle of the year, and you obviously put your conference on at the end of the year, so we can all do this together. So maybe you'll come to Sydney. You were thinking about moving, weren't you? Moving from Norfolk, or are you going to stay there?
Oh yeah. We'll. It's a very, very small island, So it does have its limitations, its challenges, but it's beautiful, beautiful. But it's only 5 by 8 kilometers, so you know you can.
How many people turned up when you had the conferences there? Was it like a handful or 20 or 30 or 40?
Oh, we had about 50 or 60.
Yeah,
so
cool.
it was quite small, but it was good. It was very intimate because everyone got to meet each other, and it was lovely.
Beautiful. Thank you. Big love to you, and good luck with Uluru this year. Can't wait to hear all about it. And thanks everybody for listening and watching, for everybody listening on the syndicated radio, on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network and the United Public Radio Network of 107.7 and 105.3 FM. Big love to all of you, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you.